his first 4 years were not encouraging in terms of him surrounding himself with the right people. He left Anthony Fauci in place, who is arguably one of the worst human beings
Yes.
ever to live, and I think that should have been easily known and detectable. And
Ladies and gentlemen, today, 3 weeks and no platform made public by Kamala the chameleon. Nothing, zero, except, of course, for the copycat policies that she's throwing out there. No tax on tips. What is she going to come up with next? The border wall. Is she going to come out tomorrow and say, hey, we're going to make America great again? Kamala Harris, ladies and gentlemen, running a basement campaign. Where does she stand on the issues? We've taken the list of the primary issues facing the country, and we are looking at where she stands on each of them. I'm going to go through them all with you tonight. We're going to identify for you the platform, the policies, and the politics that Kamala Harris will not reveal to you. And we'll tell you about the chaos and crisis for which she is famous. Ladies and gentlemen, the right side with Doug Billings is now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey, everybody. My name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout-out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right side with Doug Billings, right side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning, winning, winning. Welcome to the Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and his divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me here on the Right Side, coming to you from smack dab in the middle of the fruited plain. And reminding you, ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, DougBillings.us. Got some new stuff up there, DougBillings.us, the website. I always ask you to stop by. Of course, after the show, don't go now, go after the show. Plenty of time to cruise by DougBillings.us and click on that donate tab over there if you don't mind. Prayerfully consider setting up a monthly recurring donation to the program. We make a living, I do. There is no we, it's just me. Just you. We're shoulder to shoulder. There is no extensive staff over here. It's just me. And I never charge you for the program. Never costs to access the program, no matter where you watch it. Tonight, whether you're on X or YouTube or Facebook or Rumble, or over at worldviewtube.com or Spreely TV, all of the platforms that carry us, never costs you anything. But I do ask that you prayerfully consider a recurring monthly donation at DougBillings.us. There's a donate tab over there, all very intuitive. You can figure it out, I'm sure. Thanks for supporting me as we endeavor to bring you the truth that the mainstream legacy media will not. So today, ladies and gentlemen, 3 weeks since she's been given, she didn't earn any of this, she's been given the keys to the nomination of the Democrat Party for presidency. Kamala Harris, not giving any interviews, taking a page out of the Biden playbook, just running a campaign from the basement and from the rally stage. And she will not give more than an 18-minute speech. It's always the same speech at these rallies. And the only caveat was, of course, the other night, it made headlines all over the world, she ripped off Donald Trump's no tax on tips campaign promise. Now, a lot of people said, well, if it's a good idea, everybody should be able to use it. To a certain degree, I agree with that. But look, in order for that to work, in order for that to have weight and merit, the person who steals the idea has to give credit to the person whose idea it was. So if Kamala came out and said, hey, you know what? We might not see eye to eye on a lot of things, Donald Trump and I, but he had a really good idea about no tax on tips. And I think that we ought to adopt that in the Democrat campaign. And so I'm going to take a page and the lead and the baton and share that. I think that's a great idea. Then, of course, yes, we can agree that we share ideas and we can come, but she doesn't do that. It's an hallmark of the left, plagiarism. And she learns from the king of plagiarism, Joe Biden, on how to do that, right? She could have at least given credit where credit is due. They also, by the way, on the left, stole Donald Trump's insulin price reduction package and legislative idea as well. I mean, so it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is next? What is she going to steal next? How far to the center is she going to appear to move because she's so far to the left? She is, after all, don't forget, the most radical member of American politics to be nominated for a major party's presidency. So, for the presidency of the United States. And we have to wonder, what is Kamala Harris's platform? What are her politics? What are her policies going to be? She's not telling us, so the only thing that's left for us to do is to surmise where she will be based on what she said in the past. Now, this is an election year, of course, right? You know that when the Democrat Party, and first of all, I should correct myself, there are no more Democrats in the elected class. None, especially in Washington, D.C. Now, back home where you all live in your local counties and cities, there may be decent people who are Democrats who still believe in America and the republic for which she stands, who believe in God and so forth. In Washington, D.C., the Democratic Party has written off God and has turned their backs on the founding fathers and the Constitution. That is not my opinion. That is a matter of fact. God is excommunicated from their party, and they all say this, they want to fundamentally transform America. It's impossible to be a Democrat and a patriot if you believe that America needs to be fundamentally transformed. The founders and God's divine providence got it right the first time. Thank you very much. So Kamala Harris, with no written platform, no written policies or a platform from which she's speaking, leaves it to us now to surmise what she's going to be running on. She delivers on her rallies speeches that are literally no more than 18 minutes in length and basically the same regurgitated verbiage each night. They do nothing to move the needle with regards to what do we know about her? How is she going to govern? Is she going to be different than Vice Pretender Harris? Is she going to be different than Senator Harris or District Attorney Harris back in her days in California? Sometimes, I think, at least as I look at these things, her speeches do most of the time align themselves with Administrator Biden. Sometimes they diverge a little bit, I grant you that. The majority of the time, though, they don't really differ that much. And lately, she's adopted the thievery program, right? The plagiarism, stealing ideas. Even the way that her rallies are staged and produced is a theft of how President Trump does his. Now, and I've said before, they're excited over there because they've had the corpse of, Biden doing nothing. He couldn't have rallies like this. He couldn't physically and mentally do it. So I understand the enthusiasm over there. But the majority of the enthusiasm that you see on media, especially on social media, fake and manufactured. And it's demanded from the liberal hierarchy. So they're not giving us any answers either, the liberal hierarchy. They say that she's putting together this written plan and that it's all coming together, and all of the liberal pundits on social media. Oh, wow. Wow. Can you imagine that in just 3 weeks? She's gotten this all together, and we're going to see the policies, the platform, and the politics of Kamala Harris. Well, they've already had this written. It was for Biden. All they're doing is changing names and protecting the innocent, so to speak, right? So let's take a look. We're going to take a look tonight at her current views on major questions in America compared with her past statements and juxtapose those against her role in the Biden administration. Now, one of the key, I don't think this is the most important issue. I think the border is, but this is one of the other, certainly in the top 3 issues, and it always is up there. This issue always ranks high in American politics. And for too long, the right side, the conservatives, and when I say for far too long, at least for the past decade or so, we have been beat down so much about this issue that many of us within the right side, the conservative American Party and movement, believe that this might not be a winning issue for us, that maybe we ought to tone it back a bit. And I could not disagree more with that. We need to press forward on this issue. It is a winning issue for us. I'm talking about life. Life is a winning issue. Life, by its very nature, is always good. Life is always good. Words are important. Life is always good. Now, you might have a crummy day. You might be in a stretch of bad luck, but the essence of your life, it's always good. And it's always good because there's the spark of the divine in there. The sanctity of human life is always a precious thing. There's, by the way, in my mind, and this is strictly my opinion, but in my mind, nothing that any human being could ever do can remove from your life the divine spark of God. And I mean, you can imagine the worst person in history. That person's life, the essence of that person's life, still has within it the divine providence of God. And so for us, for me at least, that's why we view life as sacred at all stages of life, from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death. And I believe that that is a winning platform for the conservative movement in America. I think we can make that case. We can rebrand how we respond to that issue, especially in terms of the topic of abortion. We can certainly rebrand and do better about care for women and children. We will have your back, ladies. We will take care of you and your child, and we will look to the fathers to hold them accountable for their role as fathers. Everyone can do better, but the sanctity of life is at the most important moment, the most important issue, at least I see, that we feel sometimes we should give up. We should not give up on life as an issue for our conservative cause. We have the moral high ground on that. Of course, life is sacred. Of course, life is sacred. It's the primary right that God gives us all, the right to life. And so Harris and her liberal hierarchy have made murder on demand via abortion a centerpiece of her campaign. Now, she's outlining differences between herself and President Trump at these rallies and so forth. And she either insinuates or she mentions outright that the appointment of the 3 conservative Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe v. Wade is, that's a key issue for her. The radical liberals who represent this coalition of immorality, and I'm talking about the hierarchy, the elites, and the rank and file members of the elected class, for example. That is a coalition of immorality. And they speak, and they've convinced members of their own party, John and Jane Doe, Democrat on the streets, they've convinced them, the radical ones, that abortion is somehow equivalent to health care. Or the other term is, It's reproductive freedom. So abortion is health care or reproductive freedom, or both. And they play on these words. It's neither, but of course, that's what the radical liberals, that's their march, that's what they say, that's what they repeat. And they think that if they repeat it enough, it becomes part of our lexicon and it becomes part of our vernacular. And we all of a sudden, most of us think, well, yeah, maybe it is healthcare. They never talk about personal responsibility of a man and a woman. They very rarely talk about traditional family values or the sanctity of human life. On the left, rarely will you hear them mention personal responsibility, traditional family values, or the sanctity of human life. It's always just, well, it's an inconvenience. Let's go get it aborted. Meanwhile, there's millions of people around the country who would love to have a child and would gladly wait in line to adopt that baby, right? So Kamala clearly stands against first of all, I was going to say she stands against the intent of the founders, and she does. The founders could not comprehend the topic or the issue or the process of abortion. They couldn't comprehend it. It just doesn't. And if they could, they would be absolutely scandalized by it. They would view it as medieval, and it is. But when we look at the founding fathers in our Constitution, the state's constitution, that's what I wanted to get at. Kamala stands in direct opposition to the founders and their intent for the powers and the freedoms that the states are supposed to allow their people. Inasmuch as states almost always, when it comes to states' rights versus federal government rights, states almost always, according to the Constitution, prevail or are supposed to prevail in those issues. And states' rights is a pinnacle intent of the founding fathers. They fully intended state rights to rank above the powers of the federal government. The federal government has no power to enact something like Roe v. Wade. The federal government has no constitutional power to mandate just blanketly across this republic that there's a law that would give people the right to kill a child. And so it was overturned. It's faulty. But each state can do that, clearly. And that's where our challenge lies at the state level. I'm going to pick more about this. I'm going to talk more about this. I'm going to outline for you the key issues that Kamala Harris believes in. Since she's not telling us herself, you're going to hear it right here in her own words and what she said. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with me. I'll be right back. I want to tell you about the good people over at EMP Shield, electromagnetic pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It can fry your home electrical system or your vehicle's electrical system. But if you attach one of these, now this is for your breaker box at home. There's a smaller version that goes on your battery of your car, your vehicle. It will prevent it from being fried in the event of an electromagnetic pulse. Because as you know, thanks to Administrator Biden, many people coming across the border now who don't exactly have the best of intentions. Protect yourself. EMPshield.com. Get huge discounts over there if you use the promo code Doug.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that you could change the trajectory of your aging process? Look and feel better, live younger, be more active, less pain when you move around, sleep better, diminish the lines and the wrinkles on your face? Really? This is what I'm telling you. It's possible. You see, low stem cell activity happens when we get older, and it could be causing many of the health problems that some people have in the world today. Because as we get older, we have less stem cell activity, which means we age faster and we heal slower. The secret is a clinically proven and patented phototherapy non-transdermal patch, whose technology is the result of over 90 clinical studies and over 20 years of research. Your healthier life can begin today, and you can discover true age reversal. Age reversal, ladies and gentlemen. Please go to liveyongerwithdoug.us. liveyongerwithdoug.us, ladies and gentlemen. Get over there today. Or if you'd like, text my name, Doug, to 41372. Doug, text it, 41372. And get over to liveyongerwithdoug.us. Get younger, feel younger. I'm doing it. I'm wearing this patch. I feel great, and so will you. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. For the Republic. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Doug Billings, reminding you that conservatives are better looking than liberals.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Fulfilling the meaning of life. That's what I'm doing right here with you as we walk shoulder to shoulder to try to save the Republic from the grip of the chaos that's been thrust upon us by this Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. We can't tell for sure what Kamala Harris stands for because she's not telling us herself. So tonight, I'm looking at the key issues that she herself has mentioned in the past during her term as vice pretender. And we're looking at how she might either feel now, or does she still agree with Biden, or is she forming her own opinions about this in her own words and as reported from her? So when she started out, remember, for those of you who do remember, in California, when she was a senator from California, she co-sponsored legislation that was to ban states from imposing restrictions on abortions. And she voted against a bill that would have banned abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. So that's a pretty liberal view on life right there. Again, co-sponsored legislation to ban states, to tell the states you cannot impose restrictions on abortion. We can have it and do it whenever we want. And she voted against a bill that would ban abortion after 20 weeks. All right. So then in 2019, she advocated a requirement that states and localities with a history, get this, with a history of violating Roe v. Wade, they had to get, states had to get Justice Department approval before enacting any abortion laws or practices. That is straight up socialism, communism. It's why I call them the Commusocialist Party. They blend elements of both of those together. Kamala Harris, let me tell you that again. Listen, she advocated for a requirement throughout the country that states and localities who had been found to have a history of violating Roe v. Wade, that they had to go get special permission from the Justice Department before their legislatures could enact any kind of abortion laws or practices in those states. That's tyrannical. It's unconstitutional. But it's what Kamala put forth and what she advocated for. Again, she's more radical than Ilhan Omar. She's more radical than Bernie Sanders. So that's abortion. She's all for it at any stage, any time. Partial birth, 1 week, 1 month, 9 months. Feel free to do it anytime you want, ladies, because Kamala Harris views abortion as health care. Now, there are many decent people out there who are Democrats who understand that this is an issue that turns their stomach. This is a human baby. And there has to be, in that conversation about abortion, we have to also talk about human responsibility. We have to talk about the responsibility of men, especially, which are too often ignored. That we couch this issue as if it's a woman's only issue. And there's a man involved in every pregnancy, ladies and gentlemen, except for one. There's only been one pregnancy in the history of mankind that didn't require that. A show for another time, another place. So that's abortion. The most radical view on abortion that you can have belongs to Kamala Harris. The border. So abortion and the border. They've got to be at the top two. Maybe not in that order. Today, the border might actually be more of an important issue for almost every American. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at what Vice Pretender's opinions about the United States border have been and how they've changed, significantly so, when we compare to what she said in 2020. During her 2020 presidential campaign with Administrator Biden, Harris said this, and I'm quoting her directly. She said, "Think about starting from scratch." She's talking about immigration, talking about customs enforcement, the organization that screens and is responsible for investigating and deporting illegal immigrants. She wants us all to just start from scratch, do it all over, tear the thing down and start over. And today, she is claiming that she rejects that line of thinking. She's not on board with all of that starting from scratch nonsense. But in June of 2021, we do have her on record where she's addressing migrants who are coming up through Guatemala or from Guatemala. "Do not come," she said. This is a quote from Kamala. "Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our borders." Now, she said that in 2021, just after taking office with Administrator Biden. There was an uproar about the border, about all of the influx and so forth. So every once in a while, they'll put up a good quote. They'll throw out a good soundbite to make us all feel as if they're really trying to take control of the issue. She was made the border czar. There's a House resolution that says so. Look up my social media if you want to see that. And she was it. And we all know that. To say that she wasn't is simply intellectually immature. But just like Administrator Biden, she considers the multiple millions of illegal immigrants coming into the United States as part of what they call a global migration and humanitarian issue. She continually criticizes President Trump for making public comments about this bipartisan border security bill that came out earlier this year. Trump was against it, as he should have been, and he made his opinions known. That bill first of all, it didn't close the borders. It opened up the borders to more than that are coming through today. It just segmented each immigration quota according to the quarters of the year. 2,000 a quarter, 2,000 a month, 2,000 every 3 months. It was the same thing, but then it had things in there that were completely unrelated, that had to do with manufacturing, jobs that were lost to China, and other nonsense. We need to get back to single issue bills and get the border closed. Now, that's all beside the point, because all Administrator Biden and Vice Pretender Harris had to do was break out the executive pens and sign executive orders that would have closed the border. Remember, on day one, literally day one of his occupation of the Oval Office, Administrator Biden, with his executive pen, undid everything that Trump did with regards to border security. So the nonsense that pervaded, that ran through and was percolating through the White House, through their communications department about what they were telling us. Well, we're going to open up the borders. Everyone's welcome. And then, right when it becomes election year, they become worried about it, because all of you became worried about it. That's how they act. That's what they do. They're not worried about anything until you are onto them. But anyway, within that bill, as I was saying, a lot of nonsense. Some of the things in it: advanced and expedited citizenship for the illegals, right to vote for the illegals. And so Trump came out against it, as he should have. Then they spin it, and then they try to put the blame on Trump. We put a bipartisan bill to shut the border and have border security, and Trump talked Congress out of it. We don't buy it. Ladies and gentlemen, they think you're stupid. You have seen the purposeful chaos and crisis that they have cascaded down upon us for the last 3.5, almost 4 years now. President Trump shut it down. Administrator Biden opened it all up. I mean, she is the border czar. She was tasked with that from Administrator Biden. We could play you the clips. He said it in real time. Border czar, responsible for the flow of people into this country and the reasons why they're coming here. There was even a House resolution in March of 2021 that had the words border czar in it, referring to Kamala Harris. So the border, the most, I think, prolific example of how they have cascaded chaos down upon us. And by the way, it's purposeful. They want these illegal immigrants to come in and become part of our culture, to dilute the American identity, and so that they can become part of the electoral base for the new Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient. They want to give them the right to vote. The new electoral base, come on in through the border and vote for us. And if you do, we'll give you free stuff. It's plain as day. Everyone knows it. That's what they're trying to get away with. All right, what else does Kamala Harris, where does she stand on the Israel and Hamas war? What about that whole deal going on over there? And she's repeatedly said that she gives support to Israel, and she's denounced Hamas, especially after the October 7th attack, right? She and Biden are in favor, though, of this two-state solution over there. And she's lately been taking a subtle, sometimes covert jab at Israel, especially at the expense of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was here, as you know, just a month ago. And when she said to him that she understands that Israel should always be able to defend itself. But then she throws in this caveat: but how you defend yourself matters. Folks, let's be clear on this. Israel is our most important ally in the Middle East. And one could make the case and argue the point that Israel is our most important ally in the world. And Israel, my friends, has a right to defend herself however she wants to, however she deems necessary. The only lens that we need to know and look through in order to be able to be clear about that is the lens of the events that took place on October 7th of 2023. And during his visit here, it was July 25th, Benjamin Netanyahu met with Kamala Harris, and the body language, the messaging that you saw when those two were together was uncomfortable. Kamala Harris is under orders, I'm telling you, from the radical liberal hierarchy to be more pro-Hamas than she is pro-Israel. The radical elements within that Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, are clear. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and the whole squad, all of them, they detest Israel. They view Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically as a war criminal. They do wield power. the squad, within that hierarchy of the liberal establishment, the elites of the hierarchy. And the squad members are among the most profoundly anti-Israel members of Congress there are. That's a matter of record. And they, along with the rest of the liberal hierarchy, consider this, what they did when they did not choose Josh Shapiro. He was a Jew, did not choose him to be Kamala's running mate. In my view, in making that decision, the radical liberal hierarchy in this country gave a nod and a blessing to the radical Muslim community in America, especially those radical Muslim communities within the congressional boundaries of Representatives Tlaib and Omar and Ocasio-Cortez. Why didn't they choose? Josh Shapiro was clearly, they were always about a youth movement, remember? Someone younger, we need someone, well, they chose Grandpa. And the guy, look, Grandpa, Tim Walz, he's a monster in disguise. We'll get to him in another show. But any governor of any state in this republic who sits back and does nothing, which is what he did during the riots, the looting, the arson, and the anarchy that took place in his state in the summer of 2020, that's shameful. And it's purposeful. It's, again, another way how the radical liberal communist hierarchy, the Commusocialist Party of America, it's how they create and sustain chaos. They let it happen. They don't do anything to stop it until the pressure point gets about too much, or if it's an election year, then they'll try to step in and say, "Oh, well, we were going to do this. We're going to enact this. We're going to do that. See how we're on top of this." Meanwhile, the state of Minnesota has burned down. But I digress. The important issues that are facing Kamala Harris, speculating about what they might be because she's not telling us. So we're looking back upon the most important issues in this country. We've spoken about the border and immigration. We've spoken about abortion. We just got done talking about the way that they choose their leadership and the hierarchy wants them to become more liberal. Why didn't they choose Josh Shapiro, giving a nod to radical groups in this country? What about another important issue? What about the Ukraine and Russia war? Well, we're going to talk about that when I come back, and they're going to be surprised to hear me say, and I'm not defending Putin when I say this, and I'll explain when we come back after the break. But ladies and gentlemen, the Ukraine is not the good guy. And that's where we've got to begin. We've given them almost $60 billion, 60 with a B, billion. And they are the most corrupt nation, one of the most corrupt nations on the entire planet. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, DougBillings.us. Please try to head over there at some point this week. DougBillings.us. Check it out. Peruse the new website. It's revamped and refinished. There's a store over there. You can get health products if you want to get healthy and grab onto the best version of yourself. There's the shopping network over there. We also have a way that you can donate to the program so that we can continue to bring it to you. Now, I never charge you for the program. So if you prayerfully consider that you like me and that you like the show, that you like to have access to the truth, consider setting up a recurring monthly donation over at DougBillings.us. All right, and more of the truth is coming your way. I'll be right back after this break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with me. Cheers.
A lot of people are having great success with a weight management program with Bella Trim. But it's just a tool. In terms of ingredients, Chromex or chromium picolinate improves the actions of insulin, so you have better glucose management, and in addition, it promotes fat utilization. Fat utilization or fat burning is also a feature of metabolite, which are two botanicals that stimulate a switch called AMP kinase, and so you tend to burn fat, reduce belly fat or visceral fat. Who doesn't want that? Metabolite has the ability to stimulate satiety or reduce those cravings. That's really very, very important. And it does that by raising GLP-1 levels. In addition, we've addressed the microbiome by using prebiotics. Healthier microbiome, better weight management.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com.
The Right Side with Doug Billings, coming to you from the fruited plains of America.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are together, you and me, answering God's call to save the republic, right? What we're doing is saving it from the grips of the radical left Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, who have given the keys to their nomination for president to Kamala Harris. She has not earned this. It was given to her. She is a DEI hire, and they cannot fire her. They've painted themselves into a corner with her. Absolutely everyone within the hierarchy understands she was not qualified, that she's not a good candidate. She is a terrible public speaker. She doesn't have a teleprompter or note cards. In fact, watch her at her rallies. Obviously, Trump uses a teleprompter too. Everyone uses them. But Trump goes off on a tangent almost the entire rally. He's just talking ad hoc, extemporaneously, off the top of his head, and so forth. He uses notes to refer to, but then he's just off to the races. Kamala can't function without the teleprompter. She cannot speak extemporaneously. She's not a good public speaker. You watch her when she tries to go off, when she's heckled by the crowd and she tries to come up with a snazzy, comeback or whatever, and then she tries to get back on topic. She looks down, she's referring to notes. She's terrible. But we've shown you video clips in the past of everyone within that liberal hierarchy, and I mean anybody who's anybody in the liberal movement, including, I'm not just talking of the elected class. I'm talking about major legacy media news anchors and so forth, celebrities go, oh my God, I can't believe they've chosen her. She's a DEI hire. They can't get rid of her because that's all they talk about. Biden precisely said and called out in front of us all the fact that he was going to do away with and not follow the EEOCs, that is the equal employment opportunity laws that we have in this country. He was going to break all of those laws, and he was going to hire and put into place a vice president who was a woman, forgetting all about whoever and whatever qualifications a man or anyone else would have had. Woman, and she's a woman of color. So they're stuck, they can't fire her, and therefore and thereby here we are. And so the enthusiasm, again, I'll just say it one more time. The enthusiasm that you see surrounding her is fake, manufactured, and demanded from the higher up elites, the hierarchy of the liberal party. So where are we? Abortion, the border, the legislation that she wants to pass and enact. Where does she stand? Well, she's not telling us. So we're coming up with the list based on things that are important to people, to voters in this country. And then we're looking at what she has said about these issues in the past and in current time. The next one, the Ukraine and Russia war. I said before the break, it's important for us to realize when we think about and look at this issue, many people have been convinced that Russia, no matter what, is the bad guy automatically because of Putin. Okay. And I understand that. I get it. I am not defending Putin, not one bit. But I'm also telling you right now that Ukraine's not the good guy in this situation. You have no indication, from Harris at least, that she's going to have a different opinion on this topic than Administrator Biden has put forth for the last several years. And that position means ongoing military aid to Ukraine. And again, I said before the break, $60 billion with a B, $60 billion we've given to them since this war started. And if anybody, including Kamala Harris, if anyone within the Biden administration could negotiate, even on a rudimentary level, I'm telling you that we would not be in this predicament. because we look at what's been going on for the last 30 years, my friends. The last 30 years, Vladimir Putin has been telling the world, look, if you put a NATO member nation on my border, I'm not going to put up with it. 30 years, he's made himself very clear. He's protecting his borders. I am not defending him. Say what you will, think what you want about Putin. He's protecting Russia. And so he's made that abundantly clear. NATO member nations will not be allowed to border Russia. Now, we could have taken that and used that to build a better rapport with Russia. Now, who doesn't want a better rapport? Trump gets crucified by the liberals when he says that. Who doesn't want to have a better relationship with Russia? Why would not that be in America's best interest? We could have taken that information, and again, in the hands of someone who's a skilled negotiator, we could have grasped that comment from Putin. All right, no NATO members, not difficult to understand. We look at history, and we understand that we can relate back to this, especially in the United States, because we know what it feels like to have another nation put another nation's missiles in our neighborhood. Russia did it to us in Cuba, early 1960s, missile launching and all that capability. So we know a bit of how it feels, right, to have your adversary on your doorstep. Well, Russia didn't want that in the Ukraine. We could have easily sent a negotiation team. Look, I know. Look, when I was a senior in high school on the debate team, we could have negotiated this deal. Let me tell you, we could have taken a negotiation team to Ukraine. We could have had a private conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky, and the conversation could have reassured Zelensky that the United States would support you, will support Ukraine, but we can't let you be a member of NATO. We'll always have your back, and we mean that. We will. We'll protect you. But as far as the officiality, if you will, of joining NATO, can't do it. Can't do it because it's not worth souring and ruining the relationship that we have or that we want to try to establish with Putin. And it would have been fine, ladies and gentlemen. No one's kissing Putin's backside by doing that. It's called getting along for the sake of both parties. It would have cost Zelensky and Ukraine nothing. And this war would have been avoided if we simply wouldn't give the title of NATO member nation to Ukraine and other nations along Russia's border. Just protect them without that formality. It's done all the time anyway with other nations. And I just don't think that we know, you and I, we know. Look, the reputation that Putin has, it's no secret. If we're honest with ourselves, if we have any shred of intellectual maturity, we look at what he's doing and he's protecting his country. And for whatever else he's done, I'm just saying, you can't blame him for trying to protect his country. And he wants to keep the sovereignty of Russia intact. I also know enough to be able to tell you why Ukraine is not the good guy. Biden has done a lot of things with Ukraine as far as money. We're going to hear more about Hunter Biden. By the way, talk about where is Hunter. Now, I know Administrator Biden, I know the big guy, Joe, is off the radar, but Hunter's really off the radar now because his dad's about to step outside of the power that he's held. And we're going to see exactly all of this, and Ukraine knows all about it. Not saying that Russia's the good guy. When I tell you Ukraine is not the good guy, that doesn't mean that Russia is. I'm saying that Vladimir Putin has an awful lot of information on Joe Biden with regards to money laundering, a vast amount of wealth that was given in part and funneled through Hunter Biden and others. And we will find out. We will find out. Nothing in that realm happens quickly, so the virtue of patience is required, but we will find out. And plus, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I've done shows, and I would encourage you to go to Rumble or wherever and go to my DougBillings.us, wherever, and look up these shows that I've done on the real Vladimir Putin. And this is worth mentioning about him. And again, I'm not saying that he's a good guy. Not at all. I'm saying that he views radical liberalism as a disease. He has done everything possible to prevent the spread of radical liberalism into Russia. Radical liberalism and the woke agenda, the LGBTQ kook movement, transgenderism, all of those issues are, and Putin says this, he views them as mental illnesses and disease, and he will not allow them in Russia. Now, the radical left will hear this and say, well, that's a human rights issue, and it's immoral, and this and that. And I would just say, what's immoral? Is it immoral to teach children that it's okay to mutilate their genitalia if they feel as if they've been gender misappropriated? Which, by the way, that term gender misappropriated, that is a fiction, ladies and gentlemen. There is no such thing as gender misappropriation. The Creator does not make mistakes in that regard. Gender misappropriation is a mental disease. And to that point, Putin's correct. All right, up against another break. Wow, time flying fast here. Talking about the politics, platform, and policies of Kamala Harris. She's not telling us, so we're doing our best to tell you what she believes in and what she would be like if, and she won't, if she wins. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. I will be right back after this break. Cheers.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Hey, consider going to mypillow.com right now and get your pet a pet bed, just like my beloved Delta has right here in my office. Not only can you get pet beds, but you can get sheets, towels, blankets, and so much more. Slippers, sandals, robes, beach towels. It just goes on and on. But please go to mypillow.com and be sure to use the promo code B66. When you do, not only will you receive savings, but a generous percentage of each purchase comes back to continue supporting this 24/7 free broadcast outlet. We need your support. Hey, look, we're entrepreneurs, just like my friend Mike Lindell. We all need your support, and you're getting quality products at the same time. So please, go to mypillow.com and use the promo code B66. Mike always has amazing specials going right there at MyPillow. So check out whatever those specials might be today. You never know. Mike's always changing it up and making new offers right there at mypillow.com. But be sure to use the promo code B66.
Doug Billings, driving the left crazy with the truth.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to The Right Side with Doug Billings. If you're on X, please follow me and subscribe so that you're always aware of what we're doing. Rumble, the same way. YouTube, head over to YouTube. My gosh, trying to rebuild over there as well. Got a big night on X tonight, don't we? President Trump coming back to X, going to talk with Elon Musk. I'll be watching that tonight when it happens with millions upon millions of you around the world, and we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow, I'm sure. And in the meantime, DougBillings.us should be your destination. If you want to help me continue to bring you this program, prayerfully consider supporting me over there as well. One-man show, it's you and me, shoulder to shoulder, in this together, trying to save the republic from the grip of the Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat Party. So please prayerfully consider setting up a monthly recurring donation over at DougBillings.us. I hate to ask, but we got to make a living, and I never charge you for the program. So if you like the truth, if you like the analysis, heck, if you like me, head over to DougBillings.us and prayerfully consider that monthly recurring donation. So Kamala Harris, basement campaign Kamala Harris, not telling us anything after 3 weeks. It's been 21 days. She's not saying anything, nothing on her website about policy, platform or politics. So we're looking at the key issues in this country and surmising what Kamala believes in, what she would do. And these are all surmisations and opinions based on what she has said. So we're simply trying to paint a picture. We already know she's the most radical liberal politician that America has ever produced. We know that she is not a good public speaker. We know that she is not liked. She is not the first choice, but she's a DEI hire. They can't fire her because of that. Can't get rid of a woman of color. Can't do it. They've made that bed, and now they've got to sleep in it. But I'm here to tell you that we were talking about before the break, Ukraine, Russia, and so forth. Ukraine not being the good guy, Putin viewing radical liberalism the same way that you and I do, ladies and gentlemen, a mental disease. It's a mental disorder. The woke agenda, the LGBTQ community, transgenderism, all of that stuff. It's a coalition of immorality. So on those issues, at least, Putin's correct. And we have to, look, when we look at that situation, again, I'll just say it. Anyone with any rudimentary understanding of how to negotiate could have looked at the history of what Putin has said and said, all right, Zelensky, look, listen up. We're going to help you, but you can't be a NATO member nation. That's where we left off just before the break. So another issue, and this is an issue that's important to realize, because when I tell you that the conservative Republican movement in America is the only major political movement and party that aligns with God and the Founding Fathers, I mean that. That is not something that I view as just an opinion. I think it's a matter of fact and a matter of record. I do not think it is possible for a person of godly faith or possible for an American patriot to be a Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat, because the Democratic Party wants to fundamentally transform America away from the divine providence of God, away from the intent of the Founding Fathers. How can you be a patriot and believe in that? How can you be a Christian and believe in the LGBTQ kook movement, the transgender movement, the fiction, the absolute fiction that gender misappropriation is real? These are mental illnesses that we need to deal with as such, and with compassion, by the way. But we need to also tell the truth boldly and just plainly. It's immoral what they are doing. The border crisis, there is a moral issue there. There's a moral issue in ceasing our ability to be energy independent. There's a moral issue in almost every political decision that's made in America. And I'm telling you right now, although the Republicans are not perfect, at least they aspire to the divine providence of God. At least they reach for and try to understand the original intent of our founding fathers. And so this next topic is along those lines, because again, the radical left wants to transform the Supreme Court. Kamala Harris supports the Supreme Court reformations that have been part of the Commusocialist, formerly known as Democrat Party's platform since about 2020, when she was in the race for the presidency with Administrator Biden. Back then, Harris was inclined to be receptive to the idea of expanding the Supreme Court. And with regards to that particular, expanding the court, I have back in 2019 an instance where she said that everything's on the table, meaning, yes, we'll talk about expanding the court, we'll talk about term limits for justices, etc. And she's really not changed. She's for all of, or at least she is open to all of that. She thinks that there is a crisis. She calls it, quote unquote, she calls it a crisis of confidence. There's a crisis of confidence among the American people with regards to the Supreme Court. Now, what that means is that's liberal speak for we didn't get our way, so we've got to come up with a catchphrase. So that's what that is. They didn't get their way with the way that the Supreme Court is currently ruling. They are highly ticked off at President Trump for having that, doggone it, that luck of having 3 Supreme Court picks. Right, boom, oh my gosh, he got 3. So they're all still angry about that. And so they begin to blame the Supreme Court for, these what they call crisis of confidence, which doesn't exist. Most rational people believe in the Supreme Court and have confidence. They have ebbs and flows. Sometimes the courts are conservative, sometimes the courts are liberal. And even now, even with a majority conservative bench, they still can vote along a liberal line. We've seen that. We've seen it. So it's a sign and symptom of what the left does when things don't go their way. They begin to tear them down. If something stands in their way, they tear it down. 2 months after she said all of that about expanding the Supreme Court or term limits and so forth, she said that she was open to having conversations about increasing the number of justices. That's expanding the court. But recently, she issued a statement. This was just about not even a year ago. She was in agreement with Administrator Biden, who proposes that there are term limits now for Supreme Court justices, an 18-year term limit and a judicial code of ethics, because the liberals think the justices get too many gifts and so forth, and there's a conflict of interest. I'm not so much concerned about that, but this 18-month, anything that changes the dynamic of the court, anything that changes the constitutionality of what the founders put in place, I got a problem with it. I happen to think that the documents that the founders gave us are inspired by God. And so I don't think they need to be fundamentally transformed. I don't think America needs to be fundamentally transformed. I think we need to get along better as Americans. I think we need to get rid of the fringe on both sides, by the way. But we need to get rid of this the coalition of immorality. And again, Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota, Kamala's running mate. But what he does, I mean, they make fun of him, and they lift, the tampon Tim thing, and the putting feminine hygiene products in little boys' bathrooms in Minnesota might not seem like a monumental issue, but subtly and psychologically, that's how they begin to break down barriers. And so they purposely put forth this gender misinformation and gender confusion among children who are already confused in multiple ways when it comes to normal sexuality and their own self-images. But to have other things thrown in front of them purposefully, and the breakdown of the traditional family, all sorts of dynamics that fit in there. But for an elected official and to advocate that abortion can be done in the 9th month, it's a little barbaric. I think most people would agree. So Kamala says regarding the Supreme Court, there's a clear a crisis of confidence. It's been seen and long overdue, she says, that the fairness of the court has been called into question. Now those words are important. When liberals say the fairness of the court has been called into question, what that means is, the translation is, damn it, we didn't get our way. We've got to come up with something. We've got to come up with some way to break the Supreme Court. They want to tear it down, folks. They didn't get their way. The court didn't agree with their perspective. The court didn't agree with their politics, their platform, and their policies. So therefore, the court must be dismantled. It must be changed, transformed fundamentally. It's the same thing they want to do to America. Remember their mantra, build back better? BS. And they purposefully left off the word that they put first on that list, destroy, and then build back better. It's part of the reason why they let the riots, the anarchy, and the arson continue. Tim Walz in the state of Minnesota did nothing to stop that violence in the summer of 2020. Nothing. And therefore and thereby his actions are complicit in the people who lost their lives in that summer of violence and rage. He is not someone's loving old dawdling grandfather. He is a monster. He's a radical liberal terrorist, and he occupies the highest office in Minnesota, and he's vying for the second office in the United States. Also, I could go on and on, ladies and gentlemen, police and law enforcement. Kamala is all about defunding it. As a prosecutor, she rarely, if ever, prosecuted with extreme prejudice violent criminals. And when she did, she let them out early or gave them light sentences. And this is a classic problem across every state that's run, led, and managed by liberals. Soft on crime. There's already plenty of laws on the books with regards to gun violence or whatever issue you want to talk about. If only the liberals would prosecute criminals with extreme prejudice. That's who she is, ladies and gentlemen. Even though she's not telling you, that's the policy, that's the program and the platform, the politics that she believes in. All of these issues and much more. Please subscribe, like, and follow me and the program on X, YouTube, and on other platforms. Big show tonight on X, isn't there? We'll be talking about that tomorrow night. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you again for the Republic. Cheers.